You're listening to Salford City Radio 94.4 FM with your host Jimmy Petruzzi on the Friday Sports Show, bringing you all the news from the local area and around the world. We're very privileged on this show to bring you some of the world's best athletes, sports people, footballers, people who work in sport as coaches, trainers, participants, all walks of life associated to sport. And our latest segment over the last few weeks is bringing you some of the world's most influential psychologists and people who work in related fields to psychology. So we bring you some really interesting guests today. We have a really fascinating guest. There'll be a fantastic guest who's pretty much won everything there is to win in rugby league, and on top of that, you've probably heard his name. Some of the other people I've interviewed in the field of rugby league, when one of the questions I ask the participants is who was the toughest person you've played against, and the following name gets mentioned a fair few times. So we're very privileged on this show to have amazing guests, and today we've got a really interesting guest, and a local lad, Salford lad as well. So I think it'll be inspiring for any young person thinking about sort of taking up rugby league or any sport for that matter, and doing the best they can. So Adrian Morley needs no introduction. Welcome to the show. Great to have you on board.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, really interesting, Adrian, how, your career, obviously you've had a fantastic career, it's taking you around the world, and how did it begin? What inspired you to go into rugby league?
Well, coming from Salford, it's, even though it is a rugby league city, it's heavily dominated by football, and in particular Manchester United, and I was no different. I used to love Manchester United. I used to play football first before rugby league, and then I thought, my dream was to play for Old Trafford play at Old Trafford one day for Man United. I went to high school. That's when I discovered rugby league, but I still put my name down for the football team. But put my name down for the rugby league is a bit of an afterthought, really. But then my first game of rugby league, and that was it. Then I just fell in love with the sport, and then it went from there. I've got an older brother, Chris, who had a good professional career, and he actually signed professional at 17-year-old with St Helens. That got me thinking, if he can do it, why can't I? And I just thought, that was my goal then, to ultimately sign professionally, and thankfully end up doing that over at Leeds, which, from a proud Lancastrian, it was all my family fell out with me because I signed for Leeds, but at the time, Leeds were and still are one of the best teams in the country. So I got developed really well at Leeds, and the professional career went from there.
Yeah, it was a successful time for you at Leeds in many respects. It was a strong team. Adrian, how would you sort of summarise your time at Leeds? It was kind of, I suppose, a springboard for other things to come along. But how would you sort of summarise your time at Leeds?
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic. For a young lad, to get to play a sport he loves as a profession was a dream come true, really. And Leeds, obviously being a big club, they looked after me really well. They had at the time they had a coach there, Big Lot, and his policy was, didn't matter how old you were, if you were good enough, it'd give you a chance in the first team. So I thought, if I do perform well in training and in the A team, I will get a chance in the first team. And at 17 I got a chance to play in the first team, and never looked back, really. But it was absolutely great, coming through the ranks there. And I remember my debut there at Headingley Stadium. It was in front of 13,000 people, which at the time was a massive crowd, but just a buzz about the place. It's a great sporting city, Leeds, with the football, cricket, and the rugby league. So coming through there was great. We actually got our hands on a bit of silverware in '99. We won the Challenge Cup. We made the inaugural grand final in '98. We didn't actually get the win against Wigan, but that gave us the confidence then to make these major finals. And then we got the win the following year down at Wembley. It was the last ever final at Wembley before they demolished it and made a new Wembley. So it was nice to play at the old Wembley, and of course we got the win. And if it wasn't the opportunity to go and play in Australia down under, I dare say I would have stayed at Leeds my full career. I was that happy there, and as I say, they did really look after us. But the opportunity to go down under was just too big at the time. That's the decision I made, and I went to Sydney.
Yeah, and absolutely. Your career at Sydney Roosters in Australia, obviously, especially in Sydney, in New South Wales and Queensland, every young person sort of dreams of being a rugby league play. You pick up a rugby league ball at 5-year-old, and you just imagine being your sort of favourite player, and everyone thinks everyone's a professional in terms of their opinion of other players there. And how was it to sort of play in Australia, where obviously the media can be pretty harsh? Every sort of fan thinks they sort of know the game inside out. What was it like when you first went into the NRL for Sydney Roosters, who hadn't won a premiership for a long time? I think it was 20-something years at that point. A big club, a traditional club. What was it like to play for the Roosters?
Yeah, well, it was a big decision first and foremost. I was 23 years old when I went over, but you mentioned how big the sport is over there, and it wasn't something I was used to. Playing rugby league in the north of England, you don't get much of a profile, or you don't get much newspaper spaces. Whereas over there, it's quite the opposite. It's a bit like football is over here, where it's totally dominated by rugby league. And when I flew into Sydney Airport at 6:30 in the morning, there was 3 camera crews there, and I just thought there must be a pop star or a film star on the plane, and they come over to me, welcome Adrian, we'd like to do an interview. And the first week I was there, probably did about 20 interviews either on the phone or in person. That's when I realised just how big the sport was over there, because it was big news. At the time there was no English players currently playing over there, and it was quite big news. But once I got used to the attention, it was something I really enjoyed. Having a bigger profile, and I loved playing over there as well, because it was a bit of a step up from Super League. It was a bit more intense, the competition, and every week, home or away, no matter who you played, you had to be on your game and on the ball, and I enjoyed that side of it. And you mentioned the Roosters, they've not won a competition for 27 years, and my second year when I was there, we actually took the title down, which was absolutely fantastic. I joined a elite bunch of English players who'd played in a grand final and played in a grand final and won. And there's only about half a dozen of us, so very, very proud to do that, and very, very proud to be a part of that Roosters team that won after a long time.
Absolutely, and it was a great team and sort of great players. And you mentioned the obviously English players and the likes of Elliot Hanley, Afire and Light, and a lot of players, and many more. It's sort of won a lot of respect of the of obviously the fans and yourself as well. Obviously, Adrian, the sort of irrespective of who. People supported, a lot of the sort of fans had won respect in terms of the way you played the game. And was that something you were sort of conscious of in terms of the sort of the knowledge of the game that the fans had, and obviously was it something that you sort of thought, well, can I get them on obviously my side, week in, week out?
Yeah, well, I was obviously aware that it was a much bigger game over there in Australia, and I'm a fan first and foremost, and just happened to be a professional player as well. So all the history of the sport, I was very well versed in. I knew a lot of the old players who went over there and played. I think it was Harry Bath in Australia said, if you're going to drink from the well, it's important you remember who dug the well, which I thought was a fantastic quote. And but yeah, I've got a lot of respect and for the old guys, but just in terms of my performances, and I just thought if I show honest performances, I will eventually, hopefully, get the Aussie. The Aussie fans behind me, because there is a lot of it's tongue in cheek, but there is a lot of rivalry with the Brits and the Australians, and if you're no good, if you're no good Australian, they'll let you know about it, but if you're no good Englishman, they'll really will let you know about it. So I thought if I perform honestly, hopefully win a round, and thankfully I did, and it was absolutely fantastic to me. The Roosters fans were great, but everywhere where it seemed to go, seemed to get a good response, and I thought that was because of how I played the game, and it was great. It was 6 wonderful years of great experience down under, and so glad I made the decision to go now.
No, absolutely. And sort of, did you find your own game improved? Like you mentioned there, the sort of Super League, obviously it's a great competition and it's sort of, moved along and it's a great standard of rugby league, the Super League. Maybe the NRL's that sort of notch high. I mean, you'd be the best judge of that. But did you feel your own game improved, sort of playing against different players, different style of rugby league as well?
Yeah, I think there's a better quality of opposition, without a doubt. When I left the UK, when I was at Leeds, there was Wigan, there was Bradford and St Helens, and that was like the four top teams. But then there was like a bit of a gap, and then they get the four middle teams, such as Castleford, Warrington, a couple of others, and then you get another tier like Salford and Huddersfield, and you could beat them without getting out of second gear, really. Whereas you didn't have that separation in the NRL. So I remember the first year I was there, we got beat twice off Penrith home and away. They finished bottom of the table. We beat Brisbane Broncos home and away. They finished the very top. So it's anyone can beat anyone on the day over there. So it's something I had to get used to, the week to week intensity. But once I did get used to that style of play, I think it did help me. It made me more consistent and just made me have to be on the ball, on your game every week, which was great. I used to love playing over there, and you don't play as many games in the NRL because it's, in my opinion, it's so much more intense. I don't think you could play 30 or 40 games like they do in the UK with the Challenge Cup and other games. So they do play less games, but because they play fewer games, you do find the games are a lot more intense. So I used to love playing down there, and and when you make the playoffs, that's another level, another step up again in intensity. And I think we missed out on 2 years while I was there, but 4 years out of the 6 we made the playoffs, and again I used to love them playoff games.
And sort of the intensity of the playoff and say the knockout games as well, Adrian, does that sort of add the extra sort of intensity to the game, knowing that it's a sort of win or bust type thing as well? Or
without a doubt. And big crowds there in Sydney, and we were quite fortunate. We played at Sydney Stadium, and a lot of the playoff games were there. So even it was supposed to be neutral ground, and we got home advantage. But you'd get 30,000 there watching, and the intensity would knock up another notch. You knew what was on the line and what was expected, and it was great. Got some wonderful memories, and not only winning the title in 2002, we actually made 2 further grand finals in 03 and 04. Didn't quite get the win, but I think it's an achievement making a grand final. So I'd rather play in a grand final and lose than not playing one at all. So to play in 3 grand finals, when I was down there, and winning one was exceeded all my expectations without a doubt.
And sort of to play in a grand final, just for our listeners, especially in the UK, to play in a grand final in the NRL, I mean, everything comes to a standstill, and it's literally, probably the best way to describe it, it's almost like, say, the FA Cup in one sense, where sort of, all eyes, but the grand final is a huge occasion. It's an occasion in itself. But what was it like to actually play in a grand final, Adrian?
It was great. I mean, I played in a grand final in the UK already. However, it was the very first grand final in the UK, and there was I say only, but there was only 40,000 people there at Old Trafford. Now it's a sellout every year, and quite rightly so. But I didn't expect what I experienced making that grand final in Sydney. The whole city went absolutely crazy. There was red, white and blue of the Roosters colours everywhere, and you stop for the grand final dinner, which both teams meet on a Thursday morning, have a traditional dinner, breakfast. I didn't know any of these traditions throughout my time there, so we had the breakfast, but there was it was at Olympic Stadium, so there was over 80,000 people there, and but you're right, the whole place comes to a standstill, and just all the focus is on the grand final. It was absolutely fantastic, and to play in it was great. You're on cloud 9 before the game, but to play in it, and to actually get the win was just a massive relief first and foremost, but an absolutely incredible experience, and one that'll stay with me for for the rest of my life.
No, absolutely, and then you got the World Club Championship, the World Club Challenge, and it's against St Helens, and you sort of back in the UK. What was that like in terms of obviously St Helens are a huge club and have a strong tradition, and what were your sort of thoughts around that? I mean, the opportunity to sort of play against obviously English opposition again, and you established yourself as obviously a huge name in Australia. You're back again. You're playing in the World Championship. What was that experience like for you, Adrian?
Oh, it was absolutely wonderful for me because I got to represent the team I was at the time, Sydney Roosters, but doing it in the UK. We actually stayed at the Worsley Marriott in Salford, where I grew up, and we got to play at Bolton, which it's only about 10 miles from my hometown of Salford. So all my friends were there, all my family were there, and fantastic. Got to play against Super League opposition, and we actually whooped them. It was really close, the game, for about 20 minutes, and then once we got in front, we did a job on them, and it ended up being 38-0, which was nice as well. And they actually went over for a try, which I didn't score many tries, but to do it, in the UK representing the Sydney Roosters was fantastic. So great memories. Again, we come over. We was here about a week before we played the game, so I was showing me Aussie teammates around Salford and Manchester and things like that. So it was great. Couldn't have planned any better, really, for me personally.
Yeah, no, fantastic, and it would have been obviously an incredible achievement. And then you sort of made your way back then to Bradford. Obviously, Bradford's a strong team, and it's always been a strong traditional team. And what was your experience there at Bradford like? Adrian, I mean, obviously, like a short stay at Bradford type thing. You'd move on to Warrington, but how would you sort of describe your next move, the Bradford-Warrington stage of your career?
Well, the Bradford one was quite strange, really. It was the time Andrew John signed a short-term deal with Warrington, and the Roosters, they weren't going to make the playoffs. So Brian Noble, who was the coach of Bradford at the time, also the coach with Great Britain, he phoned me and said, would I be interested in signing this short-term deal with Bradford? But coming from Leeds, Bradford were the enemy, really. That was the big derby, Leeds and Bradford. So I used to hate Bradford, I'll be honest. Mm-hmm. So I just thought, I can't see me playing for them. So I actually phoned Gary Etherington at Leeds and said, I've had this opportunity to go to Bradford, but I'd rather come to Leeds. But he just said, we can't give you any money, we can't play you, and I don't like this situation with players coming anyway. So I did sign for Bradford, and I thought it would be great to keep my match fitness up for the Test series with Great Britain, and also they've got a chance of winning something. And sure enough, I played 6 games there. I was there at Bradford, and I won them all. And ironically, we beat Leeds in the grand final, the showcase, and getting that win and become the first Englishman to win a grand final on both sides of the world. So I wouldn't change it, but it was, of all my wins and experiences, that was probably my least favourite, only because I'm not sweat and toiled with the Bradford team all year, and just come in at the end of the campaign and got the glory. So it was it was as I say, it was strange, but it was something I wouldn't change.
No, it's absolutely. So, I suppose then you sort of move on to Warrington Wolves, who are and establish themselves as a strong club over the years too. And I mean, what were some of the highlights at Warrington, Adrian? Obviously, I mean, it was a big signing for them to obviously sign yourself, and that sort of showed their intent to sort of get you on a long deal there. And what was your sort of time at Warrington like? I mean, it's obviously a great club as well, and.
Well, when I did sign that short-term deal with Bradford in 2005, I actually went to Andrew Johns' first game for them, and I was absolutely amazed. It was at the Hallowell Jones Stadium. There was only about 16,000 people in the stadium. It was a sellout, but the atmosphere was absolutely incredible. And I just planted a seed then, and I thought, if ever I do come back to Super League, that would certainly be an option. And then my girlfriend, who's now my wife, fell pregnant with our first child. That's why in 2006 I made the decision to come back to Super League. So we got the grandparents around with us. Wigan were on the phone. They wanted to sign me, but Warrington also offered me a deal. And even though Warrington, they were probably known as the bridesmaids, the underachievers, and this kind of thing, but they had a new owner, Sam Moran, who I knew personally well, and he told me about the vision for the club, and the new stadium and all this, and I just thought it'd be great to be part of that club going forward. So I signed, and then it was fantastic. There were also added responsibility when I got there of making me captain, which was something I took great pride in. And being captain, we actually won the Challenge Cup 3 times while I was there in 09, 2010 and 2012. We made 2 grand finals there, but we didn't quite get the win. My last ever game at Warrington was a grand final. It would have been a fairy tale finish, however, it wasn't to be. And I mentioned before, I'd rather play in a grand final and not get the win than not playing one at all. Absolutely. So it was a nice way to finish, but it could have been a bit better. But yeah, I mean, now Warrington are one of the stronger teams in Super League, and I'm proud to say I was there at the start, and like to think I helped them become one of the stronger teams there now in the Super League.
Yeah, no, I mean, you seem to have this sort of knack wherever you go, Adrian. The clubs seem to kick on, and from as far back as obviously Leeds, and then you've got the Roosters, and obviously we'll sort of get to Salford, obviously, which would have been a special part of your career. But looking at your international career, I think obviously on paper we see the England team, the GB team, some great players, and there's been times that in some of the international tournaments, the Four Nations, the World Cups, you think, well, England's got a chance here, GB's got a huge chance there, and putting some great performances. But what would you say would be the difference in terms of maybe just getting over that line and sort of beating Australia in a major competition in that respect? What are some of the differences, do you think, Adrian, between the two?
Well, I think the Aussies and the Kiwis, they're playing in the NRL, and with that week-to-week intensity, I think that helps both national sides. And I think when you're seeing a number of English players playing over there in the NRL, I think that improved the national side over here. And it was only an ankle tap on Callum Watkins that was right, possibly the difference between winning the World Cup and losing the World Cup a few years ago. Yeah. But I just think if you've got a better domestic competition, which Super League is great, don't get me wrong, but I think the NRL's a bit more intense. That's going to have a knock-on effect. So I think they've got a bit more strength in depth, the Kiwis and the Aussies. But that's one of my big regrets. Very, very proud to represent my country, whether that be England or Great Britain, but we didn't have a lot more success as a nation. That's one of my big regrets. But as I say, it's great winning things. Very proud to say I've won something with virtually every club I went to, but my proudest moment, without a doubt, was representing my country, and did it for 16 years I did it for, which is, I think it might be a record, that. So proud to do it, but also do it for a long time. And but yeah, it would have been nice to win a few major pieces of silverware with the country, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there were times that England, GB got close and put in some great performances, that's for sure. And, like you mentioned there, I think it's quite interesting, week to week, obviously, intensity of the competition is going to help the play. Also, you've got the State of Origin tour, I guess, where, the best of the best are playing each other over 3 games, and that sort of raises the bar as well in terms of selection going forward. But in terms of sort of, obviously you're a player, Adrian. You'd walk into, in your peak, you'd walk into any team, any international team. But do you think it could be a bit of belief as well? I mean, obviously the ankle tap you mentioned there's a little bit of luck as well you need along the way. But do you think maybe a little bit of belief too that we can win this major tournament too? Is that sort of one area too?
Yeah, I think the Aussies have built up this aura really of invincibility over the last 50 years or so. When we was confident when we used to get our best 17 on the field, to line up, we'd be confident of giving the Aussies and Kiwis a game. But because we'd not got that strength in depth, when we'd get 2 or 3 players not available through injury, which it's rugby league, there's always going to be injuries, then you'd see people talking, so-and-so's not available and they're going to be good enough, and you could see the doubts there, and which it was a shame really, whereas the Aussies and Kiwis had the luxury of no matter who was injured, the person that'd fill in would be up to the task and up to the standard. So, but there was a few test matches where we did everything but win, and we just seemed to throw it away, at the end. But as I say, what wonderful experiences. There's no better feeling than lining up with your teammates, singing the national anthem, and your neck stand up and all that kind of thing. But I mean, if we would have got the victory in that World Cup, I think that would have given Rugby League in general a big shot in the arm over here. Would have been a big boost to the game, but it was the one that got away again.
Yeah, and absolutely, and that's a great point. I mean, a generation of young players see that, and but I think the performances of the last World Cup, Adrian, especially, I think it's sort of a lot of people took note of that. I think that I mean, sort of watching in the last World Cup, they just seemed to be a bit more freer the way they were playing, and just didn't seem to be as under as much pressure, and gave it a good go.
Yeah, I'm quite disappointed. Wayne Bennett is not on the helm anymore. Speaking to the players and the coaching staff around him, they thought he was the man for the job, and he was great at what he did. And if you look at, even though, don't get me wrong, we didn't win the World Cup, you can't just reward mediocrity. But the way they played, and they was in with a massive shout in that World Cup final. I thought they should have stuck with him, and then who knows what he could have done with another year or two under his belt. But I think big Sam Burgess is a huge loss. Sam is the best player, one of the best players who's ever played our sport. England, we're not blessed with that many world class players, but Sam certainly was one of them, and I think he's a massive loss to the game, but a massive loss to England, the league as well.
Absolutely, for sure. And I mean, speaking of sort of rugby league, and sort of, did you ever sort of contemplate maybe going across to Union yourself, Adrian?
No, I didn't. I mean, I didn't. First of all, I didn't get an offer anyway, so it was never on the table for me to ever think about. But I think for my position, the way I played the game, where could I play in rugby union? So I know if you're a back, Jason Robertson, for example, what a fantastic transition he had. Sam Burgess was the best forward in the world when he went over to rugby union, and he played in the centres. Although he did play very well, he got in the national side. Still, even though you do tackle the same, you pass and kick, it's a very, very different sport as well. So I didn't get the opportunity, but I dare say I wouldn't have gone anyway. But I'm not anti-rugby union by any stretch, but I don't think it's certainly wouldn't have suited me, I don't think.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you made about Sam Burgess too, and obviously it did show that one thing's for sure, he's making that sort of transition isn't easy as well. And obviously Robinson's the sort of athlete really that could probably play any sport in any position, just the blistering speed he has and that sort of stuff, which is amazing stuff. But and you sort of make a return you sort of end up playing for Salford. I mean, that would have been special for you, sort of hometown, albeit it was a season, I think, Adrian, that you went back to Salford for.
Yeah, I did. I mean, coming from the area, no matter where I played, I always kept my eye on Salford, and I was always a Salford fan. Still am a Salford fan. So I just thought my career would probably be a bit incomplete if I didn't represent my hometown, and I got an opportunity. I was 36 at the time, but I just thought, I've still got a bit of life in me. I'm going to go there and play, and I loved it. Even though we probably underachieved for the squad we had, but we made it no less special for me. Representing me my home city every week, and it was wonderful. Even though Warrington's only down the road, it was hard for me. I remember I had to get there most home games, but they used to come watching me there, and it was great. And I've got some great memories of representing Salford, and I'll be a Red Devil as well as a Wolf and a Rhino and a Rooster till I fall off the perch.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think for sure it's like Salford itself is just a great city, and people love their sport, and sort of I suppose with the football team as well at the moment, sort of rising through the ranks, and doing really well. The Rugby League team as well. I've got to say, Adrian, I was pleasantly surprised the way they sort of performed last year. I'm not as knowledgeable as yourself and many people in rugby league, but I thought, I didn't expect that they'd go as far as they did, but that's probably my lack of knowledge really. But what did you make of sort of Salford last season? That sort of success and just the way they played the game was really impressive. Just they played a really great brand of rugby league, and
I think a lot of it comes down to the coach, Ian Watson. I'm really good friends with Ian. I played all my junior stuff with Ian, but very, very smart, knowledgeable coach, and he's obviously from the area. Yeah. But if you look at the squad, they didn't have any. They didn't have a load of superstars, but you could tell when they took the field, they had great team spirit. And if you look, they were probably spending £300,000 or £400,000 less than all the top clubs, in terms of the salary cap. So there was always up against it. But rugby league, it's a team sport, and if you've got a good team spirit and good camaraderie, you will go a long way, and that's what saw them through. Making the grand final was great. It was cheering me out for Salford. I wanted them to win, but I think it really was a tough ask to go up against St Helens, who were on fire, and get the win. But they give themselves, really great account of themselves in that grand final. But just making the grand final was fantastic for the city. The win at Wigan the week before was
incredible,
unbelievable. Some of them scenes there, and for the Salford fans to out-cheer the Wigan fans on their own turf was great. Making the grand final, but it was just one step too far. But as I say, it was a great achievement, and one that will live long in the memory for these Salford fans.
Yeah, and absolutely. It was sort of great, and the buzz around the city as well, and with the football team sort of getting into league football too, and sort of it was an amazing obviously time around the city, that's for sure. And in terms of your own sort of career, Adrian, you sort of reflect back on it. I mean, one of the sort of questions I mentioned earlier, I ask a lot of people on the show is, who would you say some of the toughest performers that you played against were?
Good question. One of my heroes growing up was Gordon Tallis. When I started taking rugby league seriously, he was the same position as me, but I just loved the way he played the game. He was so aggressive, and he was great. So he was a big hero of mine. And then when I got an opportunity to play against him, it's a bit daunting really when you go up against someone who you think so much of. But I used to love going up against him, because you want to play against the best. So big Gordy's up there. There's another player that thankfully I didn't get to play against him a great deal. I played with him more than against him. That was Quinton Pongia, the big Kiwi prop forward, and sadly unfortunately he's passed away now, Quinton. But he was such a tough man, and I'm so glad I played more games with him than against him. Another one of my favourites was Ruben Wicker, who was another Kiwi, and he actually started on the wing, then went to the centres. That's right. Then he ended up second row, then he ended up prop forward. So very obviously a big athlete, but with Ruben, you knew you were going to get 100% effort from him, and we had some great ding dongs over the years. So he's one of my favourite sparring partners, really.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff. And I mean, I suppose, like you mentioned there, in terms of, he made that sort of transition there from the wing across to centre. I mean, in terms of yourself, did you sort of ever contemplate in your career to play in any other position, Adrian, or would just?
No. I was second row Well, I actually played a bit of centre as a junior. It made me when I played my first game for the Leeds A team. They put me at centre only because they were struggling for injuries and numbers. So I did play. I think as a professional, I played one game as a centre. But no, it was second row for me, and I used to love getting in the middle and getting stuck in. And I played played about half my career at second row, and then the last half at front row. So there's not a huge difference anymore. I mean, if you look at the body shapes of these forwards now, they're all very, very similar now. From a lot loose forward, second rows, front rows, they're all big, tall, athletic people anyway. So there's not a great difference. But no, I was probably not fast enough to play my trade in the back. So I was quite happy being in the forwards.
And did you see many changes in training, Adrian, from when you sort of burst on the scene with Leeds? And obviously, things had changed. Sports science had come into it. And what are some big changes in the intensity of training? I mean, you guys have to be amongst some of the best athletes in the world to play the sport that you do. But were there big changes in training?
Yeah, there was. Well, when I first made first team, it was part-time, the sport was. So you train on a night time, Tuesday and Thursday night. Everyone had a day job, but then the introduction of Super League, that's when all the clubs went full-time. And then it was tough, really, because I don't think the staff really knew what to do. Instead of having you for 3 hours a week, they were suddenly getting you for 30 hours a week. So I think they just used to train you just for training your sake. And then, but then once the sports science, they got involved, which was great, really. So I think because of all the different techniques, the ice baths and things like that, and not overtraining, which some clubs were guilty of that. Just as I say, training you for training your sake. But once the experts said, no, this is not beneficial for their performance, and then once they got the fine balance, it was great, really. And I feel myself very, very fortunate. I mean, I worked when I left school, I worked for 2 years as an electrician, and it was really, really hard, working on building sites and things like that, and it made me really appreciate what it would be to be a full-time athlete. Some of these kids who come from school and go straight into the professional environment, I think they are missing out a little bit on what the real world is like. They're in a bit of a bubble, and then if they might not make it, but if they go back to the real world and get a job, it's a bit of a shock to the system. Whereas I'm glad I experienced that later on. I think it made me a bit more hungry and a bit more grateful just to appreciate what I had as a professional.
Absolutely, that's some great points. And with the sports science, preparing for games and tapering for games is a big thing, peaking at the right time. And also in terms of career longevity, I mean, yourself, obviously, you played, and how much it was down to your training, Adrian? Obviously, you had to have been doing something right to sort of carry on playing and at a high level. And I thought you days playing at a high level.
Well, I was fortunate in the fact that I used to love training, the physical side and the fitness side. So a lot of the players, I will name names. Barry McDermott, my old teammate, he used to hate anything to do with fitness. He used to hate it, and he used to hide and try and get out of it. But I used to love it. So I think that was great for me in terms of it. It did give me a longevity. I won't say I was that professional at the start of my career in terms of drinking and that kind of thing, but later on in my career, when I met my wife, that's when eating well and not going out drinking, all that kind of things, that all took effect. I think when I had my kids as well, that settled me down. And I think all these combinations, I liked training, I ate well, did the right thing, and I think I had good genes as well. My brother played; he had a long career as well, so quite fortunate in that regard. But I was 38 when I gave up, and as a forward in rugby league, that's quite old. So I was very fortunate. 20 years I played as a first team professional, which it's as I say, I'm proud of.
Yeah, that's an incredible achievement. I mean, as a forward, 38 years of age, that intensity, obviously the Rugby League's a very physical game, physically, contact game, and that's good going. And I suppose that some of it's going to be down to mental as well, in the mindset too. And did you have a way of preparing for games yourself, Adrian? You seem to sort of go in the zone whenever you're on the field, and
yeah. Well, I was talking about this the other day with my best mate actually, who was my best man, and he said when you was young, Adrian, on game day, you was a right idiot, basically. I was as soon as I woke up in the morning, I was in the mood, grumpy and really, really short-tempered. And he said you was a sort to be around, basically. But then as you get a bit more experience, you learn how to keep your emotions in check. And then I was a bit more tolerant to be around. But he said for about 3 or 4 years, he said I used to avoid you on game day, but that was my way of getting in the zone and getting psyched up. But yeah, throughout the years, I was always extremely serious about training and about playing. But I must admit that later on in my career, I did get a bit more relaxed. And,
bit more mellow.
Yeah, a bit more mellow, and I had the ability then to switch off and switch it on, a bit more at will. Whereas early in my career, I felt I had to be switched on all day to get me in the mood. But it was tough. The way I played the game, I used to have to try and psych myself up to get myself in the right frame of mind without going over the line, but psyching myself up, getting myself ready for the game. And occasionally I did go over the line, as we know about the disciplinary record. But that was the way I prepared myself to get myself really wound up, and then just try and let it unleash on the field.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say, and I think as well as that, I think was that like a big part of the game? I mean, obviously, certain players, certain performers, like yourself, Adrian, you go out there and you play it, you leave nothing in the tank, you give it all you've got, and obviously you mentioned there, so that from a disciplinary point of view, but I suppose that sort of is the makeup of the game as well. Do you think certain athletes sometimes that's just the way they play the game, and you just got to accept that every now and again? Obviously, disciplinary, they might just cross the line there. Is there a case for that for certain athletes? You think football, rugby league, they just that's their makeup? You take it out?
I think so, because I was quite fortunate. All the coaches I worked with, I used to, get on with them great, and they, when I did get sent off or I did get suspended, they'd say, look, we don't want to change the way you play, because how you play gives everyone else a boost, and it's just your strength really. We don't want you to get sent off as much as you do. Try and curb the aggression, but they didn't try and change it at all really, which was great. It was giving me the freedom really to try and express myself. But it was, as I say, it was a balancing act every week, trying to psych myself up, but not trying to psych myself up too much where something would go wrong and I'd get sent off. But yeah, my coaches are great, and I do feel that certain players, I think you need to, if aggression is there, that their strength, let them go and express themselves, let them go and be aggressive. Obviously give them a few pointers and a few technical pointers, but just let go of Gal, then let them do it. So Gazok was another one, from Wigan. His strength was, great ball player, but he was very aggressive as well. And again, I don't think we should have tried to change Gaz too much. But I think in general, I think that type of player is very slowly being phased out of our game. I think the game's becoming a lot more sanitised, and you can argue for and against, but I think the physical side, the softening up period, that's going out of the game now as well. And when you get lads forwards having a one-on-one, that's going out the game now as well, which I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I wanted to keep all that in, but for the kids and for the TV, I can understand it. But rugby league, in my opinion, is a contact sport. It's a collision sport. I think you should have a little bit of the aggression in there as well.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say, and obviously over the years it's changed a lot, and health and safety and sort of rules and regulations. But you think back to the 80s, Adrian. It's like when I first started watching the game, and you'd have the proverbial punch ups and that sort of stuff, especially when you sort of you get two teams that are fierce rivals, and you're sort of waiting for the state of origin. But things have changed, like you says, and that's just the way it is. But it is obviously still a physical, tough sport to play. But from that perspective, for any sort of young person sort of contemplating getting into the game, Adrian, how tough is it to play rugby league as a sport? I mean, how physically demanding is it at the highest level?
Oh, it's extremely. In my opinion, it's the hardest team sport in the world. Not just the hits they take. It's just how fit you have to be to play it. You have to be quick, you have to be big, you have to be strong. There's all these different elements of fitness that you need to play rugby league. And if you look back over the years now, Martin Afai was a great winger, in the 80s. I don't think he'd be a great winger in the current game, because it's not all about speed. He was out and out speed. It's not all about speed now. You need wingers to come in and help the forwards out and that kind of thing. So a player who was once great is not going to be great now. But I think now, from 1 to 17, you all need to be athletic. You need to be big. You need to be strong. So I think someone said recently, if you got a guy who's 6'2", 104 kilograms, that you could play virtually every position in rugby league. Because they're all these robotic machines now, and there's something in that. I mean, in the 80s, you used to look at a person's appearance and physique, and you could literally tell what position he was, whereas you can't really do that now. All these like Ryan Hall, the Roosters winger, he's heavier than me than when I was in my prime, and he's a winger. He's certainly faster than me, but he's bigger than me as well. So we are getting these monster wingers, and even front rowers, same as second rowers, and lock forwards, and the centres are big boys as well. So they're all these big strong athletes now.
But is that down to recruitment, Adrian? Like what the coach is looking for now? I mean, in some respects, it sort of takes away. Like you mentioned there, obviously the game's moved on in various ways from what it used to be. But obviously you had players, you still have now, don't get me wrong. But do you think that's sort of down to recruitment, where coaches are sort of look and identifying athletes first? And sort of without a doubt, I know they certainly do that in Australia. They look at a guy's makeup and physique, and then because you can teach them how to catch a ball, but so they don't look at the football skills first. They're looking at the athletic ability first, and then they'll go from there. But I know I think all sports are doing that. Trying to get these great athletes playing each individual sport. So it's I think it's good. It's great. It all adds to a great product on the field, having these big strong machines all running around. So it's great. Yeah, from a spectacle point of view, sort of power and pace. And I mean, in terms of rugby league itself as a brand, I mean, we look at how far like Union's obviously taken off with the World Cup and so on and so forth. And it sort of surprised me sometimes that the rugby league hasn't got the same stature around the world. Obviously, it's growing, and the World Cup's coming along, and you've got teams like Toronto coming into the Super League as well. But what are your thoughts on the rugby league? I mean, as a spectacle, it's incredible to watch, and what could they do you think to sort of put it on a world stage, on the bigger world stage?
Yeah, well, it's disappointing first and foremost. I believe it's the greatest team sport in the world, and I watch a game of rugby union. I said I'm not anti-rugby union, but I watch a great game of rugby union, and then I can watch an average game of rugby league, and there's no comparison in terms of the entertainment. Rugby league wins hands down, but is that just me being biased and one-sided? But they've got it going off in Australia rugby league, but it's just Australia, and just maybe on the east coast of Australia, but north of England it's great, but the rest of the world is rugby league's been going for 120 years, and we've not quite managed to crack the world yet. I think the Toronto Wolfpack, that's a massive positive. If we can get another team or two over in the Americas, that would be great for trying to get the sport out there. But I think we are very, very slowly making inroads. But it's quite frustrating when you think, we've got these great athletes, this great game, this great product. Why are we not on the world stage? But fingers crossed, we live in hope. But the question was, how do we get rugby league big? I don't know. There's many better minds have thought about this over the years, and we've still not quite managed to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I suppose it's like, a number of reasons. I suppose, that little luck as well too, in terms of, the right time, right place type thing. But we've seen the World Cup grow in rugby union from what it was in 87, I think it was, and now obviously it's a huge global tournament. In some respects, I'm sort of surprised that league hasn't sort of caught on. Like you said, all you can do is take it in stages. But in terms of sort of young players, a lot of young athletes listen to this show, and they'll be hanging on to every last word you say, Adrian. A lot of people sort of look up to you as a great athlete, great rugby league, great ambassador of the game over the years. And what would you say to any sort of young person sort of contemplating getting involved in rugby league and sort of seeing how far they can go?
Yeah, well, I think it's any team sport, but particularly rugby league, it's a great sport to play. I'm still best mates now with the lads who I played with at Eccles, my local amateur club, as under 13s. When you do play the sport with someone, you get that bond and you get that camaraderie, you get that for life. Then so play rugby league, great, but give yourself every opportunity. You don't want any regrets. So if you weren't good enough, you can hold your hands up and say I weren't good enough. But you don't want to be saying I wish I'd have trained harder, or I wish I'd have done this, wish I'd have done that. Do everything you can in your capabilities to give yourself that opportunity, and then see how far you go. So don't have any regrets. In terms of training or things you could have done, things you should have done. So you have no regrets. That's me. My advice.
No, that's powerful stuff, and young people listening there, and it's great for them to sort of hear from someone like yourself who's been there, done that, won pretty much everything is to win in the game, and powerful sort of words for them to sort of just go out there and enjoy. And we spoke before that you mentioned you were doing like a charity walk in a few weeks.
I am, yeah. I mean, it's quite common, but if none of the viewers know, Rob Burrow, who's a fantastic player, international player, played at Leeds, he's been diagnosed with motor neuron disease. So a lot of the rugby league community are doing charitable events for Rob, and myself included. I've volunteered to walk from the AJ Bell Stadium, Salford, to Headingley Stadium, Leeds. It's 47.5 mile, and I'm aiming to do the walk in under 12 hours. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be a power walk for 12 hours, but I'm hoping to raise some funds for Rob and other sufferers of motor neuron disease. So that's 3 weeks on Sunday I'm doing that, and I've got a Just Giving page there. So if anyone would like to donate, that would be fantastic.
No, absolutely, and awareness too, Adrian. It sort of raises awareness for obviously a devastating condition. So for sure, if people can log on or get on the Just Giving page, and that'd be great. Obviously, it's a challenge. It's a devastating condition, and it's obviously great that people like yourself are able to sort of contribute to charity and build some awareness too. That's great stuff. And just sort of going forward yourself, Adrian, in terms of moving forward, sort of do you contemplate getting back in the game in any sort of capacity at some point, or?
No. To be fair, I stayed when I finished playing. I stayed involved on the commercial side at Salford, and then I tried coaching at Leeds, but it wasn't the same. Playing rugby league's great, and I still love the sport dearly. But having done it for more than 20 years, I've got a young family, and I spoke to my wife, and I just said, I'm thinking of leaving the sport, and having done a normal 9-to-5 job even for a month, I knew it was the right decision. Get all my weekends back and got my summer holidays, Easter holidays, and that kind of thing, and spending a lot more quality time with the family. As I say, I still love the sport dearly, but I'm glad I'm not involved day to day. I'm actually I'm one of the Man of Steel. I'm on the panel for the Man of Steel, so I keep a little bit of involvement there. So there's 20 of us on the panel, and So because there's 20 of us, we don't have to watch a game every week. It's every few weeks I'll either go to a game live or watch a game on TV and vote who I think is the man of the match. So again, it's a nice little bit of involvement there. So I do keep me toe in the sport.
Mm-hmm. And so where do you sort of see the future of the game going based on your experience in the UK, the Super League? Obviously Toronto was a brave move and a big decision that hopefully has big positive effects, but where do you sort of see the Super League going from here, Adrian?
Well, I know it's not because the Toronto Wolf pack, but this could be the best thing that's ever happened to rugby league. Because we've been trying to promote the game for 120 years. We've not quite done that. Whereas the Americans, they love sports, they love action, and rugby league, there is no better sport in my opinion. So every game is domestic. Every game at Toronto is shown domestically over there. And then if they get another team in Canada and maybe another in New York, these Americans will see this sport and think, wow, how can we get involved? And over there, the money involved in the sports for TV deals is absolutely incredible. And if we can tap into the TV deal back over there and get some money into our sport, that's when we can really start to promote the game. So I think this could be the start of something fantastic for rugby league. So all the people who are not for Toronto, I think this could be the way we actually propel our sport into the next level.
Absolutely. I think it's one of them, nothing ventured, nothing gained, and it's obviously worth giving it a shot and see what happens and have every confidence that things will sort of take off. But it's been great speaking to you on the show, Adrian. Some really interesting and insightful experiences you've been sort of kind enough to share there, and really powerful stuff. And that was really fascinating, no doubt, for the listeners, and obviously yourself being a local lad in many respects will be huge for many people listening in. Many young people will probably be hanging on to every last word you've mentioned then. Hopefully consider taking up maybe being an Adrian Morley in the future, who knows. But thanks, Adrian, for being on the show. It's been great of you to join us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. That was Adrian Morley, who doesn't really need any introduction. Had an illustrious career in rugby league. Kind enough to join us on Salford City Radio 94.5 FM, the Friday Sports Show. Your host, Jimmy Petruzzi, bringing you all the news from the local area and around the world. What a great show. As always, feel free to drop us an email on the Facebook page. Any comments, questions otherwise about the show or anything else. Great to have some of the world's best sports people kind enough to share their time on the show. And thanks